I thought it was really interesting to bring Joe and Fabio out together for a couple different reasons. Their careers crisscrossed paths in many ways. They turned professional, I believe, the same year. They were juniors or an espoir at the same time, competing very hard against each other in big races. And then they both came to the professional ranks. And they both retired at a similar time and have really embraced their new lives and careers post-competition in very interesting ways. I've spent a lot of time with Fabio with Rouleur, doing photo shoots around the world with Assos. We returned this year to the Planche des Belles Filles, the place of one of his great exploits. Joe and I have been friends for a long time, and he lives in the heart of Nice, in the old town and by the old port. And so every time, we go to Nice a lot when it comes to bike racing. And so every time I'm in Nice, I give him a call and say, Joe, you want to get together? And we usually find a time for a coffee or dinner and talk about career in the sport and where the sport's going and where he's going. So I thought that would be a really interesting combination of personalities here. Obviously, Joe was, both of them kind of met at the Baby Giro in 2012. Joe won the race. Fabio got second. And their careers then have been with both of them with only the biggest cycling teams in the world. And I just thought it was really interesting. Obviously, Joe, you were with Sky in the beginning, and working with just the biggest teams. Fabio, instant success, only 3 years into it, and you're winning the Vuelta a España. Joe, later you came on and won a stage in the Giro d'Italia. You've also had injury problems that were very similar, that happened at different points in your careers. So I just thought there was a lot of kind of subtle overlap here that'd be interesting. Joe, is just, the Baby Giro, you came in as one of the big espoir, as we call it. Immediately went to Sky, but you had some health issues, and you're also on like one of the biggest teams in the world. They were as big as I got, right? And was that the right choice for you? I remember I working with Jens Voigt, and he was on CSC back in the day, and that was a huge team. And they won everything. They were right up there with Sky. But he said sometimes the young riders, they would come in and it was almost too big of a step, and they would just making that step to the highest level was a hard transition. Was that looking back? Do you think that was the best choice? I mean, obviously, a young kid, the chance to ride for Sky was amazing. But was it in terms of the evolution of your career, the best thing?
Yeah, I mean, I think. That first professional contract, I was lucky to kind of have a luxury of options of where I could go. And I think naturally you want to go to it's sort of like if you could go sign for the New York Yankees, that's where you're going to go. I guess looking retrospectively, is that the best place for a young rider? Maybe at the time, it wasn't. I think that some of the infrastructure around the teams now, in terms of bringing young riders in, is better. It is a huge jump from, the under 23 category to World Tour, especially at that time. Like now, you sort of see guys that are still at the under 23 age that are winning the biggest races at the World Tour level, and I think that. My experience there was probably also partly colored by, I did have kind of, it was potentially a career-ending injury, like really from the get-go of my career as a pro. And it took me a couple years to kind of figure out what that was. So maybe I kind of looked at my time there in a negative light, but I think, when you're a bike rider, you like whatever team you were performing in, and if you're in a team that you didn't have a great year, you don't look as, fondly upon it. But I think looking back on it now, it's pretty cool to be a part of a structure that was, at the time, the dominant team in the sport.
You learned a lot, obviously. Fabio, don't need to tell your story. 3 years in to your professional career, and you're winning the Vuelta a España, 2 times podium of your national tour. What was it like? All of a sudden, you're still like an espoir, as we say, a hope, and you're winning one of the biggest Grand Tours. Was that amazing? Was it stressful? What?
Yeah, of course, my life's changed after. I think after just the year before of the La Vuelta, I was third in the Giro d'Italia in 2014, and I immediately, feel that my life won't change. It's a lot of interview, a lot of media or fans around me, but I like it, Anyway, yeah, when you have results, you like it, and you feel a bit, frustrated about it because you have a lot of media that ask you why you don't win, why you drop. But that's a life. I'm so happy now. I'm also lucky to be here because of my sport. Because I was 10 years pro, and I'm lucky to be here in front of you guys because of my sport. I still love to do sport. I still love that word. And when I retired, I don't retire because I was, I was a bit frustrated in some years, but I retired with a smile, and I'm still happy to be here now.
In the last issue of Rouleur, we sat down with Romain Bardet, who just has decided that he's going to end his career next year. And he looked back over it and he said, you can divide the career into maybe 3 phases. You have the first couple years where you're learning and you have an open slate and there's no pressure. And then you get your first results and the pressure becomes. And this, obviously you're getting paid more, and with that, you get more expectations. And he said kind of, and that's kind of the difficult part. And then a few years later, you kind of know what your maximum potential is, and you settle into that. But it wasn't. He said that middle part is not always easy to navigate, and it seems like sometimes when I've talked to you, it was the same.
Yeah. I was, I became pro in 2012 in August, and immediately I did the first Giro with Nibali as an helper in 2013, and he won the Giro. I was top 5 in the last stage with the snow in the Tre Cime di Lavaredo, and the year after in 2014 I was third in the Giro, immediately after my career. As Joe said, now it's more used to see Pogacar at 19 years old winning the races, or Remco.
Yeah.
But before was not like that. I was 23 years old and immediately in the podium of the Giro. Yeah. That was good. But the pressure you have, of course.
Yeah. We went back to the Planche de Belleville this spring, and you won that amazing stage there in 2017. It did not stop there. A couple days later, you got the yellow jersey.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, is Fabio the revelation of the race? Was that your greatest moment of your career, or was it winning the Vuelta? I mean, can you compare them, or is it just something so special about the year?
Yeah, that year was so special for me and for whole Astana team because, in April, one of my teammates, Michele Scarponi, unfortunately, we know what happened, and I was supposed to do the Giro, but I was with Michele in Sierra Nevada for a training camp. We were together, and the crash, I had an injury in my knee, and the Giro that year started from Sardinia. Not every year started from Sardinia, from my island, because I was born there, and I had to skip the Giro, and just I start to train again in May in altitude for training with a lot of you don't know how it's going because you prepare all the season from November to April for do the Giro, and then you crash. And then I start again the trainings for the Tour, for the Dauphiné. I was 5 in Dauphiné, and I won the Italian Championship, and I won that stage, and it was, so special for me because I won the Italian Championship with the jersey of Michele Scarponi.
Wow.
Because we changed the jerseys just before Sierra Nevada. I had the extra small, and he gave me the small because, and the love is incredible sometimes. And I won the stage of the Tour. I get a yellow jersey, and it was so special. Maybe it was the best moment in my career.
Great.
I think. And in Tour de France, Tour de France is
Yeah.
Tour de France.
Yeah.
I'm Italian. I love to do the Giro, but Tour de France is Tour.
Well, we went back there this summer, and his name is on the sign. They have all the winners. I mean, there's not that many of them, and he's like, "That's me." It was pretty great.
Yeah.
Joe, your greatest moment, I think, came a few years later in the Giro. You have obviously a special rapport with racing in Italy. That must have been incredible in its own way. It was later in your career, and you'd gone through early career injuries. What was that like?
Yeah, I mean, pretty special. I think, I came into the sport with a lot of expectation when I was young, which to some degree, probably didn't live up to what a lot of people thought that I would achieve, which I think, maybe like Fabio alluded to, like you do have a lot of pressure and stress, and probably early on, it took me a while to kind of deal with that in the best way. But in the end, in my career, I was, more the role of a teammate. But I think the beautiful thing of cycling is that there's kind of all these narratives within the sport where you have a team hierarchy and you're often working for a leader, but then while you have a GC, there's also days where everyone can kind of play their card, and that sort of element of the sport, it's maybe a little bit more like chance involved. So when everything actually kind of plays out and you have your day, it's pretty special.
Yeah. You are on all the big teams throughout your career, Sky to UAE. How did you see the teams evolving over those 10 years?
Whew, the sport's changed a lot in 10 years. I mean, it's kind of crazy to think that when I first turned pro with Sky, they really were kind of at the cutting edge in terms of what they were doing to kind of optimize around performance. And I don't think it would be an exaggeration to say that now what they're doing, the lowest budget team in the sport is doing all that and more. And that's in, one career cycle like mine. So that evolution is pretty quick. And I felt that particularly in the last maybe 3-4 years of my career, like things really accelerated in anything from training to nutrition, the way teams recruit riders, the structure. I mean, if you look at the size of the structure of teams, maybe you used to have one nutritionist, 2 coaches, something like that, and now there's this ballooning infrastructure around riders, and also the amount of information that's available in finding young talents it's so much more visible than I think it used to be. So probably like almost any industry out there, it's just gotten a lot more competitive. And I imagine it will continue in that direction.
Yeah, I was with Visma around the Amstel weekend, and you want to talk about marginal gains. This is one of the teams that's really been pushing the envelope. They have now hired a clothing specialist who's dealing with aerodynamics, how the clothing reacts to weather conditions, crash conditions. They have a doctor who's dedicated to crash recovery, not just, you know, health and whatever. They got one that's just like focusing on getting the guys back on the bike and as fast as possible after crashes. And it's just like each new team that's pushing those marginal gains adds another layer to it. And it's been pretty intense. Both of you retired within a year of each other. And both of you guys have really embraced the post-retirement thing. There was, you know, back in the day, the guys would retire, and I'd see the French guys, you know, cigarette here, you know, and that's not happening anymore. And these guys are two examples of that. Fabio, I remember you said to me, we were sitting down after a shoot that we did in Switzerland, and you said, you know, it's not because I'm not racing as a professional anymore that I'm not going to ride my bike. I've always been a sportsman, and I always will be. And in many ways, I sense that you're even enjoying it more. And Joe, you really never stopped. I mean, you're riding, you're doing ski mountaineering. I think you're going to be, I hear maybe you're preparing for the next Olympic Games.
I don't know about that.
Yeah. But you're both super active, and it's clear that cycling is still a huge part of your career. We've talked about that a lot, Fabio.
Yeah. I think it's so important. I love to do sport. From when I was 5 years old, I was playing tennis and football. I was not so good. I was better in cycling, but you know, I love to do sport. I do 3 times a week. I ride my bike, mountain bike, road bike, and I go to the gym. I run a bit. I love to be in shape. I'm more than 10 kilos more because I was 60. Now I'm 72 around. But I'm still in shape. I feel good. I need to do sport, and you know, sport is my life, and I like to be in shape, still in shape, with some kilos more. Maybe I can have sometimes a beer. You know, it's before I cannot, but it's a good.
In many ways, I mean, you seem to almost enjoy it more. I mean, I remember you said to me, "I went to bed hungry." Every night for 5 years.
And every morning.
And every morning,
at 5,
you know,
sometimes.
because the diet, climbers like these guys, every gram is potentially a disadvantage, right? And then also you said, you know, just the pressures. I mean, when you were winning these great races, you didn't always have you couldn't take it all in because there was so much going around that was such a pressure. And now you can just go ride your bike.
Yeah. Maybe I was thinking a lot in the last 3 years because I retired 3 years ago. Maybe if, you know, the whole cycle, not all, 10 years ago, we were focused too much about weight. I had to be skinny. I had 3% of fat in my body. And, you know, sometimes it was good, but not so good because I was always hungry. I went to bed hungry, and I wake up hungry. All my life was about, you know, thinking about the food. But, you know...
and you're Italian. I mean, that's... You know.
Yeah, okay, but
food is important.
That was maybe the worst part of the cycle. Because I love to train. I can train 8 hours a day. I love to do that. But, you know, when you are hungry, your head is a bit... doesn't work.
Joe,
maybe Joe can say the same. We are too skinny sometimes.
Yeah, I think, speaking of like evolution of the sport, I think that's also something that's changed is it's too simple to say people are eating more, but they're eating more at certain times. And I think I think before there was too much focus on always being like skinny and light and, you know, almost like the team doctors would chase you around with the calipers, like checking that you hadn't gotten fat. And yeah, that's important, but it's not the only thing.
Yeah. And you also, I mean, every time I talk to you, it's like, well, I was just on the Col d'Ez today, or, you know, I can't do dinner tonight because I'm up in the mountains skiing or doing this cross-country thing, but I'll be back tomorrow. You know, I mean, you're filling your week is filled with activity.
Yeah, I mean, as a cyclist, like my whole adult life, I've always been active. And I think it would be, we'll see, because I would say in some ways it's kind of a gap year for me, and I'm kind of at this crux of like, well, what do I want to do next? What interests me, and like I have interests kind of outside of cycling, and it's like, how do I navigate that and into the next thing? But one thing that I think will always stick with me is, at my heart, I'm an athlete, and you know, if it's raining, I'm not going to go ride my bike anymore. But I just love staying active, and it's also been a lot of fun to do other sports. I skied a lot this winter. I did a lot of ski touring. I've started running. I did my first 5K a few weeks ago. I'd like to build up to do a marathon. So yeah, I think it's funny because you see some guys that retire and they just stop. You know, they become like completely inactive. But I don't know, I just couldn't imagine that. And I think that whatever I do next, that will be a consideration, is because I always want to be outside and be an active person.
Yeah, I mean, that's one reason you decided to stay in Nice, because you said it's just such a great great city for being active in sports, and you can get up to the mountains quickly. You can do all kinds of riding. Joe, you're right. You've only been retired now for barely a year, right? Officially, not even, and you're still kind of figuring out what you want to do, and what you're maybe best suited to do. You were talking to me earlier about just, you know, all the, you know, a cyclist's career at this level is very different from many of us. You know, you don't go to high school and go straight into college and stuff, but you learn a whole different skill sets on the road, that could be very useful in life, and you're trying to figure out how to best use those things and find a new path.
Yeah, obviously my sort of experience and expertise is in cycling because it's what I've done my whole life. And I think for any professional athlete, but especially for cyclists, that talent ID pipeline is so young. And say you're like an American cyclist, you turn pro, like at a pretty young age, you're moving, you know, to Europe and establishing your life there, and kind of your whole background is built around that. And obviously when you're a cyclist, like at some point that comes to an end. And I was always curious as a rider, and like always in the back of my mind thinking about those things. And I think that this year I've just tried to really be, anything that interests me, that I'm curious about, I try and learn about it, and also identify people that are doing it and think, okay, how could I, if I want to transition to this, or at least give it a try, like how could I make that step? I guess one thing that I've been thinking about more recently is having not gone a traditional school route, because I've always been a bike racer, you know, identifying those people doing those things, and like, could you create an opportunity for yourself almost working under someone as an apprentice, you know, purely for learning. So it's maybe more slow moving than I thought, but I think it's also healthy to kind of, you're in it's a luxury to be able to take your time and really think about what you want to do. So between doing a lot of sport and just enjoying this year, from a perspective I've not gotten to have until now, and kind of just being really inquisitive and curious and brainstorming, that's kind of, yeah, what I've been doing.
Okay. And Fabio, I mean, we were talking, I mean, your schedule, you could be still racing a bike. You're traveling so much. You were in China last week, yeah, for the second or third time this year. You go to Sardinia. You work closely with a hotel down there, brand ambassador for Assos and Specialized and Ecoi and other brands all over the world with your bike usually.
Yeah. I also like Joe. I like to be active, you know. In a different mood, you know. I'm ambassador. I do the events. I have my academy. I create my academy, awesome, the Fabio Academy. 2 years ago. I want to help the kids from Sardinia because I was born in Sardinia, and in south of Italy it's not so easy to become a pro, to have opportunities to be a good athlete, and I want to find a new Fabio Aru, or a better Fabio Aru. That's my dream. And I have already 50 kids, and yeah, that's what I like. I have my business in other part, but I still love to be involved in a sport and to do events like that, and to stay with the people. I was in China last week. I did a lot of social rides with the people there, and they were so happy, and that makes me happy to.
Is there any advice you give to the young kids in your academy about starting out in cycling that you think is important, that maybe some advice that you wish somebody had told you when you were young and starting out?
Yeah. I always suggest to the guys to have, that fire inside. They have to be strong, they have to push, they have to do sacrifice. I was studying in the flight because I had to take the flight every weekend from Sardinia to north of Italy and back every weekend from 15 years old to 18. We have to do sacrifice. That's about the sport, that's about the life. And, they have to be like this, I think.
All right, well, listen, our time is up. I really wanted to sit down with you, both of you today, and I'm really happy I did. It's always great to see you. Would you please give a round of applause?